give a round of applause to Kathryn Swales. Join the dots, Kathryn Swales.
When I first heard the mantra, 6 billion stories and counting, I thought, that really resonates with me. This is the sort of broadcast channel that I could really identify with and become involved with. 6 billion stories and counting. To account for something, to sum up something, means you value it. To have a bulk such as 6 million, or billion rather, means that it's not so en masse that the individuality of the stories don't matter. So, you have individuality there, and you have a world or a global view also. And I thought, this is a channel that I can become involved with, the sort of programs that I will enjoy. What I have found in my life is the power of the narrative. And I commend to you the opportunity when you get it, which is a very unlikely thing in the busyness of our lives, is the opportunity to reflect, to spend time and join the dots within your own story. One of the fine things of coming to a forum such as this is that each night that we come, we hear one another's stories, because to decide on a speech means to reveal yourself. It means to reveal your values, your experiences, and what matters to you. So every Wednesday, or every second Wednesday, rather than going to a lapidary class or a language class, where one might join and learn a competency and maybe find a mate who's next to you, here you learn about the membership readily, because it's repeatedly and reliably laid in front of you. The stories of people. I commend to you, however, that opportunity to think of those things that are recurring in your life and what meaning that's associated with those things. The recurring, I would suggest, those things that are coming up repeatedly, are the things that matter. They're your core business in your life. They're your core business. Recognise it and gain from that recognition, that reflection. Now, as you know, you don't, in this busy life, you don't get that opportunity very often to spend time reflecting. You do in postgraduate studies, and one of the extraordinary benefits of postgraduate studies is that you spend time with someone who's intelligent, who's objective, and helps you sort out the stuff. However, I never expected to get to postgraduate studies because my undergraduate experience was so horrific. I got into the eco faculty, and that was the one subject I failed at year 12. And here I was at university level, 2 compulsory subjects, stats 131, eco 101, and I didn't understand either of them. It's particularly stats because it's all about figures, and I left maths, arithmetic behind at year 10. And I got in with a tutor who I was determined to learn. I got on the first row, and through the year I wormed my way to oblivion, to anonymity, because I didn't understand what was being presented to me. Professor Snape, still remember his name, carried the board, covered the board with Arabic basically, because he explained everything about stats through maths, as did the tutor. And I was left so way behind, and absolutely no one noticed me moving away, becoming disengaged from learning. You can imagine the sort of result I got at the end of the year. And I still remember the night before that exam, where I was to go and at the university level demonstrate the black hole of oblivion of which I had no learning in stats. You can imagine the depths of despondency. The following year, I had to re-enrol because that was my maths into arts. I'd always aimed for arts. I was an expressive person, I was after arts. So I had to re-enrol in stats. And I went to the enrolment officer, and they're all just students who were employed over the summer. And I said, I'm re-enrolling, had a terrible year last year, really lousy marks. I'll go with the same tutor. He was a really nice fellow. The bloke asked me, you want the same tutor? I said, yes. Really pleasant. Left it at that, and off I went. 3 days later, I was at a barbecue, and it was dusk. And I was with the fellow with whom I was going out at that time. And we were hanging around the fire, as you do, with the drink in your hand. And people were telling funny jokes, relaying the week. And this bloke, a couple down from me, piped up. It had a really busy week because he was the enrolment officer, one of the many for that year at Monash. And then just relating what happened. But the funniest thing he was saying was the girl who came up during the week, and she wanted to re-enroll because she'd failed so miserably the week before or the year before. And here she is, and you know what? She wanted the same tutor because he was so good. And everyone was highly amused, and I stood like stone. It was dusk, there was fire, and there was every hope in this world that I wouldn't be recognised. Because partway through his story I knew he was talking about me. And if he recognised me, and if he saw and was embarrassed, that meant the humiliation was public. And at the moment, all I was a chameleon. I was standing rigid and hoping for the world that I wasn't to be recognised. Everyone laughed. The fellow with whom I'd come to the barbecue turned to me and his face dropped. Because he clearly read on me my stone-like expression. It was me. But what I found from that, other than thankfully getting away, was that I realised, why am I peddling towards failure again? Why am I pursuing more industry, trying to do it better, when I've got the wrong recipe, I've got the wrong mix? And that's what we often do in life. We pursue things harder, and we shouldn't be continuing on that course at all. It's a wrong mix. And so, I found out who was a good tutor of eco-stats. Clearly that bloke was doing his masters, he's after the buck, he wasn't a teacher. I found the name of the best tutor, or no, teacher at Monash in stats. Her name, and it should be lauded, any good teacher's name should be lauded, was Cynthia Hogg. And I found in the telephone book her address, and I went to her address because all of her tubes were full. Everyone knew Cynthia Hogg was great, and I couldn't get my name on her list. So I actually went to her home, and I pleaded my plight, that without stats 131, I can't do the hurdle into arts, and I honestly have no hope of getting it. Can you help me, Cynthia? She bought me. She gave me, we covered for the whole year, 6 areas of the curriculum. We did every variation on what could be thrown at you in those 6 areas. But more importantly, she identified that there was at least half the curriculum you could write about. Stats always isn't about the figures. You can do research methods. You can explain why you have a sample. You can do observation. And so for half that exam, I was able to write. And I did what I was most successful at. Yeah, there was a different outcome for sure. But what I found from that was I met a teacher. A teacher, a good teacher, identifies the strengths of the student and adapts that to the curriculum that must be covered. I also learned that failure can lead to success, as it did later in life when I did do postgraduate studies, and I chose to do qualitative research, not quantitative research. It's allowed. But it was a whole decade and a half later that it had credibility. When I originally did an undergraduate degree, quantitative was the way to go. Qualitative was barely spoken about. To do interviews, to look at documents, that being research, yes, it is perfectly laudable now. So what I commend to you is that I have found in joining the dots of my life, the recurring themes is that the narrative is truly important. The stories of people is very important in learning and imparting how to learn. And the other thing is the richness of individuality, that I applaud and value the individuality of people and therefore their stories. And Mr. Toastmaster, I do believe it is now 7 billion and counting.